I want to talk about the ands versus the buts.
Hi, my name's Devon. Today I own several multi-million-dollar companies. We started with $5,000 in a credit card. I don't know the easy way. I only know the hard way.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Whiteboard Entrepreneur Podcast, where I give straightforward advice for the entrepreneur in all of us. I'm Devon Dickinson, and today I want to talk about the ands versus the buts. That's A-N-D-S versus the buts, B-U-T-S, not two T's, just one T, but the buts, S. All right, so listen, I'm going to tell you, this is not an original. I'm regurgitating something that Nick Saban taught me. And I'm an Ohio State guy, so this is hard for me to admit that I'm going to learn something from Nick Saban. But I'm going to give credit where it's due. And Nick Saban, shout out. This one's for you. It's the ands versus buts. I saw this on his social media, and he talks about how, you know, they're Alabama, right? And in the Nick Saban way, he's like, you know, very Nick Saban. And he's like, well, everybody here is 5-star recruits, right? We're Alabama, right? And so, you know, he talks about how, you know, literally when he walks in the locker room, you know, across the board, you know, all of them could play in the NFL. But his point is, it's so good. And as entrepreneurs, we need to get this. He says, the thing is, anybody on my team could play in the NFL, but it's the ands versus the buts that keep them from being in the NFL. And I was like, I'm intrigued. Let's hear it, Nick. Tell me what you got. So he goes on to explain. He goes, you know, everyone here is a 5-star recruit, right? You look at the stat sheets on these guys, you know, he runs a 4.2. You know, he's 6'3". He's 200 and whatever, right? He benches 500 and whatever. All of these ridiculous stats, right? He's caught, you know, so many touchdowns. He's ran for so many touchdowns. You know, the third string on Alabama can beat, you know, most college teams. And so he's talking about this, and he goes, the thing is, all these guys are amazing, and when you look at their stats, they're incredible. But as, you know, their career progresses, you know, you get these closed door conversations with, you know, people in the NFL and like recruits and scouts, and they're like, well, tell me about so-and-so. And so, you know, the coaches are like, well, yeah, he's 4'2", blah, 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 6'3", benches, you know, 450 pounds, whatever it is. And on top of that, he loves his mom. Man, you should see the way he treats his family, man. He makes sure that they always, after the game, he goes up to him, loves his mom, makes sure that, you know, they're getting taken care of, and walks him out to the car. And he's the first guy in the locker room whenever we have practice, the last guy to leave. And in the weight room, he started off only benching 250. Now he benches 450. And, you know, maybe he's not a 4.0 student, but he always gets a tutor whenever he needs. And, you know, he realized that he didn't have the speed that he wanted. So he went and found one of the coaches to help him with speed work. And after and. So it's like, this is what he is, and he's this. Opposite. You know, he's 6'2", you know, benches 450 pounds, runs a 4.2, but we can't get him to show up in the weight room. But he's got a terrible attitude and argues with the coaches all the time. But he's got domestic violence against him. But. And it's the ands versus the buts that separate the people in the long term. And I thought, my goodness, how incredible of a lesson is that for us as entrepreneurs, right? And I know what you're thinking, because we're narcissistic. We think, oh, I don't have any buts. I'm an and guy. And so immediately what you do is you start going to your employees or your managers and thinking, oh, Jill's this, but blah, 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 blah. Bob's that, but blah, 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 blah. Well, let me tell you, before you can do that, you need to self-assess. You need to assess, what are you? You know, because listen, if you're an entrepreneur and you've had a degree of success, you're a 5-star recruit. You've got all of these great things about you that people can say, and all the successes that you may have, right? But what does your family say about you? But what do the people who really know about you say? But what do people say when you're not in the room? But who are you really? But how are you? Are you selfish? But how do you treat other people? But what do you do with your spare time? But. And that's what we need to do as entrepreneurs. And you often will surround yourselves with people who will only tell you that those first stats. Oh, you're so good. You did all this. You're so smart. Your company's this big. You have that many people. You've grown that fast, blah, blah, blah. And no one will tell you the buts because you're the leader. Right. And so you think this message is about you going and evaluating other people in your organization about the butts in their life. But this message, the reason we're having this podcast today is because we need to evaluate the butts in our life. I don't care how successful an entrepreneur you are, but this relationship's jacked up. That relationship's jacked up. You don't talk to your family. They don't like you. Nobody around you likes you. But you do this wrong. You don't pay your taxes. You hide your money. But you do this, that, and the other, right? And you have the front line, you have the tagline, you have all of the good stuff. But my challenge to you in this podcast is never going to be easy. It's always going to be hard. It's for you to evaluate the buts and turn those buts into ands. And here's what I'm going to tell you. You can turn those buts into ands, right? Because I don't care how old you are. I don't care how many bad habits you have over the years. I'm all of this, but I'm an alcoholic. Okay. But you're going to have cirrhosis and die. And you're okay with that? I'm all of this, but I've never had a stable relationship in my life. And you're okay with that? So you're just going to continue to focus on this part of your life and you're not going to do the buts of your life? Well, I'm going to say that's weak. That is a weak answer. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're someone out there who's pursuing their dreams, we cannot ignore the buts. I would even tell you this part of your life doesn't matter if you don't get the buts right. That's what Nick Saban would say. He would say, I don't care if you run a 4.2. I don't care if you run a 6.4. If you have the buts in your life, you're never playing or making it in the NFL. We know this. We all watch football. We watch TV. We see this happen all the time. And we look at them and go, oh, well, what a waste of talent, blah, blah, blah. Well, look at yourself and go, what a waste of talent, blah, blah, blah. Right? Because we have the butts in our life and we have to challenge ourselves and we have to deal with those butts. And like I said, as an entrepreneur, yes, we can evaluate the people that work for us and look at the people and go, hey, these are the people that have the ands and these are the people that have the butts, right? And we want to help them as a leader. We want to help them grow, right? But the most important thing to do as an entrepreneur and as a leader and someone who's pursuing your dreams is it can't just be about all of these successes, all of this great talent you have, all of the victories that you've overcome, all of the growth that you have. If we have the butts in our life, it kind of nullifies that first part, right? It's not worth it. Just like that person who could have had more touchdowns than ever, if they have the butts in their life, it will prohibit them from being who they're truly called to be, how the greatness that they could truly have. And as much as that's true for the athlete, that's true for the entrepreneur. This is a hard message, I know. I've got to talk to myself in the mirror before I give this to you, because I got to tell you, I'm someone that's had butts and I still have butts, right? We're never going to be perfect. But what takes courage is to look at yourself in the mirror and deal with it, or surround yourself with people who will tell you about the butts in your life. Look at yourself in the mirror and deal with those butts. And it's a hard way, I know. I know it's the hard way, but that's the only way I know. I'm Devon. This is a Whiteboard Entrepreneur Podcast, and I hope that helps.